Donna some hats and some scarves. Oh, you see her hats up there on the piano? We'll put her scarf there too. Okay. Is this on, Chris?
Can you guys
Yeah,
listen?
hello. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay.
Good.
Hi, my name is Cindy Donaldson. I met Cathy Nole at a Chris Westfall concert here in this church, one floor up in 2001. And I was here with my 11-year-old daughter at the time, and I heard people saying, "That's Chris Nole's mother," in the front row. And I was like, the real Chris Nole? Like, that's really Chris Nole's mother? So I couldn't believe it. And much to my 11-year-old daughter's chagrin, I walked up to her at intermission, and I said, "Are you the real Chris Nole's mother?" And she said, "Well, yes, I am." And she promptly unzipped her pocketbook and took all kinds of articles out of it for me. She said, "You can read those during the second half, but bring them back at the end of the show." She wanted to prove she was Chris Nole's mother. She also, when I brought the articles back to her, she equally made a point to tell me she also had 2 other sons that she was equally proud of. And she was very, very funny. That very first time I met her, I knew she was a hoot. And I loved how proud she was of the 3 boys, and she told me all about them. Cathy, with a C for Catholic, she would introduce herself. And I have been friends for 18 years. In the last decade or more, I've been traveling with her to and from and driving her to various concerts in Maryland, Virginia, see you guys all the time there, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Aspen. That's when we had the most fun. She was a great music buddy. We listened to music all the way to and from shows and loved to discuss and analyze the songs we loved. I loved traveling with her to Aspen for the John Denver memorials. It was the closest to feeling surrounded by paparazzi that I'll ever get. Only they were fans. She was a superstar in Aspen. Everywhere we go, people would yell across restaurants, "Mrs. Nole, Mrs. Nole." Or if we were on the sidewalk or in a lobby of a show, they would run up to her and hug her and say how glad they were to see her, and she'd smile and she'd talk to them for 10 minutes because she wanted to give her fans time to be with her. And after they would finally walk away, sometimes she would turn around, look at me and say, "Who the hell was that?" And I said, "What? I don't know either." She literally could cause a crowd to form around her, and she was so funny telling them stories. It was very cool to see, and all of you that have been to Aspen, you know that's very true. She was always surrounded. She was more famous than Chris was, I think, when she was in Aspen. Cathy listened to music the way I did. We absorbed every note. We were never satiated with a song, and we could listen to the same song for hours. We could go on very long car rides together and listen to music deeply and intensely without saying a word. And we could just tell by the expression on each other's face that we got it, we heard it, we understood. We loved a lot of the same music. Not all, but definitely more than 50%. If I said to Cathy, "Did you hear where he took a breath? That was such a cool place to take a breath." Whereas my daughter would roll her eyes and say, "Mom, you're ridiculous." But Cathy understood. Cathy loved to watch TV. I rarely had time, so she'd fill me on the world's happenings in her opinion. An opinion she had about everything. She watched news by day, and late at night she watched a music channel I did not get up where I live. She would call and tell me who she was watching and how he would be something someday, and she was usually right. When Chris asked me to say a few words about Cathy, I pondered what Cathy would want me to tell you about her. She would want me to tell you that she always kept an immaculate house. She did not work until her kids were all grown up because she didn't want anyone else raising her kids. Did you know she owned a flower business? For at least 2 years with a friend, she had a flower business. And they would find any kind of flower in any color you wanted, and they would bring it to your house in a pot to plant outside or to keep in your house as a houseplant. She actually wanted to have a storefront. She looked for a storefront, but she could never find one. They didn't get that far. She once parked her car on the lawn of the New Jersey Capitol to protest something that I can't even remember anymore what she was protesting, but she loved to tell me that story. She was extremely political, and so was her husband. Did you know she kept a loaded gun in her house? Yeah, which is why I never dropped in to surprise her. Cathy had osteomyelitis in her arms and shoulders as a kid and continued as an adult. She was in a lot of pain throughout her life, and she missed a lot of elementary and high school for surgeries. She also would want me to tell you that she cooked real food for her kids, and her lunches were so good that her kids would walk back home from school just to eat her hot lunch and then walk back to school. And she was very proud none of the other kids did that. When she would hear stories of parents having trouble with her kids, she would proudly say she never had that problem with her kids. They always respected her. They wouldn't dare not respect her, she said. Remember the loaded gun. She taught all of her boys how to shoot a gun, and she was very proud of that. She also loved her greens, loved her oysters, and don't ever add sugar to a sauce recipe, ever. She had at least 3 young men courting her in high school, and when they would bring her home, she would say, "Now look," and you know 2 of her favorite words, "Now look. Don't you kiss me, I'll tell you when you can kiss me." She said her husband asked her to marry him rather quickly because he was going in the service. She agreed because she knew he was the one. She loved how she never had to tell Chris to practice the piano, and she loved when she answered the phone one Christmas day and it was John Denver calling to wish Chris a Merry Christmas. She loved Chris's music, and we spent hours listening to it. She loved seeing him in concert. They were some of her proudest moments that I got to experience. She loved how Perry was still so connected to the neighborhood and his friends, and was extremely proud of his Marine service and of him being a pilot. I guess most Marines aren't both. Or I guess he was the pilot, he was an Air Force and Marine. She loved his passion for all his fast muscle cars, but just would shake her head because she just didn't get it. But she loved that it was something he never let go of. She loved what a great dad both Mike and Perry are. She loved that Mike plays in a church band. She felt bad that she had to bother him to come help her with everything at the house, like putting in the air conditioner and things like that, because he lived the closest. Because she knew he worked so hard and he was very involved in his church and his band and his son. So she so appreciated Mike and Lisa, like Donna said, taking her in the last year of her life. She loved that Lisa was a great cook and fed her well, and she raved about Mike's 24-hour care, literally. I think he'd be an LPN or a CNA now. I think he'd pass with all his experience. Our phone communication increased over the years as she got around less and less, and her friends called her less and less. She always called me when a storm hit North Jersey to see if I fared okay in the storm. She had a fantastic memory for the past. She always talked about her father and her mother, and her siblings and her husband and her kids. She had so many stories, and she mesmerized me with details. Cathy was very witty and funny. She cracked me up on many, many occasions with her wicked sense of humor. She was fiercely realistic, very religious, and could smell BS a mile away, and she would call the person out on it. She was 10 times braver and bolder than I am, and I think sometimes when she stood up for herself or her beliefs, I lived vicariously through her just for her ability to stand up for herself. She was funny. Every time we talked, I cracked up. She said what other people only think. It cracked me up coming out of this little lady. She was tough as nails. So some of you that might not know Cathy might be wondering, feisty? Like, what do you mean? Well, this is an example. She told the undertaker when she dies to put her in the casket face down and naked so everybody could walk by and kiss her ass. We were both similar in that we were both widows by the time we were 40. We raised our children alone, and we loved going to concerts together, especially where her son Chris was involved. We went to Aspen together several times for the John Denver Memorials, and we loved it as much as each other. Cathy was sharp as a tack till the end, in case you're wondering, and she was as spirited as ever. That made me smile. She loved life, she loved God, she mostly loved her boys. Cathy literally would have done anything for her boys. When my daughter Brooke heard the news that she had passed, she said, "Mom, what are you going to do now?" So she knew what a big void Cathy's passing would leave in my life. She was my weekly phone call, one of my concert-going buddies, especially when the concert involved a long road trip or a plane trip. I could talk to her about any song. She always understood why I would obsess over certain songs. Cathy made me always feel loved, and I loved her very much. Rest in peace, Cathy.